November 27th, 1950. Your Private First Class Joe Martinez, 19 years old, a Marine from Texas, and you're shivering in a foxhole above the Chosin Reservoir in North Korea. The temperature is dropping, -30, maybe -40 with the wind chill. Your rifle is so cold, it burns your hands. Your canteen is a block of ice. And somewhere out there in the darkness, the Chinese are coming. You and your buddies have heard the rumors. The Chinese have crossed the Yalu River in force. Some say there are 60,000 of them, maybe more. You're surrounded, outnumbered 4 to 1, and cut off from the rest of the 8th Army. The only way out is a narrow mountain road, already clogged with wounded and broken down vehicles. But here's what nobody told you. This isn't just a battle for survival. It's about to become one of the greatest fighting withdrawals in military history. A story of courage, leadership, and brotherhood that will echo through the Marine Corps for generations. Today, I'm going to show you how the Frozen Chosen, a ragtag force of U.S. Marines, Army soldiers, and British commandos, escaped certain destruction in the face of impossible odds, and how their stand changed the course of the Korean War. In the fall of 1950, the Korean War seemed almost over. General MacArthur's forces had landed at Incheon, recaptured Seoul, and driven the North Koreans all the way to the Chinese border. The Marines of the 1st Division were ordered to push north through the mountains, home by Christmas, as the brass promised. But the Chinese had other plans. Under cover of darkness, hundreds of thousands of Chinese troops crossed the Yalu River and surrounded the UN forces at Chosin Reservoir. The Marines, spread thin along a 78-mile mountain road, suddenly found themselves encircled by an enemy that outnumbered them at least 4 to 1. On the night of November 27th, the Chinese struck. Waves of soldiers, some armed only with grenades and bayonets, charged the Marine positions. The first attacks were a nightmare. Flares lighting up the snow, bugles blaring, machine guns chattering, and hand-to-hand combat in the darkness. Private Martinez remembers, it was chaos. You'd see a shadow, fire, and hope it wasn't one of your own. The cold was so bad, you'd almost welcome the adrenaline of a firefight just to feel something again. The cold was the enemy's greatest ally. Weapons froze. Medical supplies became useless. Frostbite claimed more casualties than bullets. Marines learned to sleep in shifts, huddled together for warmth, always ready for another attack. By December 1st, the situation was desperate. The Chinese controlled the high ground. The only road out was under constant attack, and the Marines were running out of food, ammunition, and hope. The wounded piled up in makeshift aid stations, many dying simply because they couldn't be evacuated in time. Frostbite was everywhere. Some men lost fingers, others lost toes. The medics did what they could, but there was only so much you could do when the temperature was so low that morphine froze in the syringe. General Oliver P. Smith, commander of the 1st Marine Division, refused to panic. When asked if he was retreating, he famously replied, "Retreat, hell! We're not retreating. We're just advancing in a different direction." Smith's plan was simple but daring. Break out of the encirclement, fight their way south along the single mountain road, and bring out every wounded man, every piece of equipment, and every Marine who could still walk. On December 6th, the breakout began. The column stretched for miles. Marines, Army soldiers, British Royal Marines, and South Korean troops, all moving together through the snow and ice. The Chinese attacked constantly, ambushing the column from the hills, blowing up bridges and trying to block the road. At Funchilin Pass, the Chinese destroyed a vital bridge, hoping to trap the column for good. Marine engineers, under fire, built a replacement bridge from prefabricated sections dropped by Air Force C-119 flying boxcars. It was a feat of improvisation and courage that saved thousands of lives. The real story of Chosin isn't just about tactics or strategy. It's about brotherhood, Marines carried wounded friends for miles, shared their last rations, and risked their lives to pull each other out of the line of fire. Black, white, Hispanic, Asian. At Chosin, none of that mattered. You were a Marine, and that was enough. Private Martinez remembers, "I saw guys do things I'll never forget." One Marine gave up his boots to a buddy with frostbite and walked barefoot for hours. Another dragged a wounded corpsman 2 miles under fire. We weren't fighting for generals or politicians. We were fighting for each other. Air support was crucial. Marine and Air Force pilots flew hundreds of sorties, bombing Chinese positions and dropping supplies to the trapped column. Pilots braved enemy fire and blizzards to bring in food, ammo, and medical supplies. Without them, the breakout would have been impossible. The march south was a nightmare. The column was attacked at every turn: ambushes, roadblocks, snipers. The wounded rode in open trucks, exposed to the freezing wind. Frostbite, hunger, and exhaustion took a terrible toll. At Hagaruri and Kotori, the Marines fought pitched battles to keep the road open. Every mile was paid for in blood, but they kept moving, never breaking, never surrendering. On December 11th, after 17 days of hell, the survivors reached the port of Hungnam. Navy ships were waiting to evacuate them. Against all odds, the 1st Marine Division had brought out its wounded, its dead, and its honor. Of the 30,000 men who began the breakout, over 17,000 were wounded or frostbitten, but the division was never destroyed. They brought out their equipment, their wounded, and their dead. The Chinese had expected to annihilate the Marines. Instead, the frozen Chosin had escaped. General Smith told his men, "You are the finest fighting force in the world. You have done the impossible." The breakout at Chosin became a legend in Marine Corps history, a story of courage, leadership, and brotherhood in the face of certain destruction. The legacy of Chosin lives on. Every Marine learns the story of the frozen Chosin, how a handful of men, surrounded and outnumbered, refused to quit. Their example inspires new generations to this day. The cost was staggering. Over 17,000 U.S. casualties, including 2,500 dead. Thousands more suffered lifelong injuries from frostbite and wounds. But the Marines' stand at Chosin saved the 8th Army, preserved the UN position in Korea, and proved that even in the darkest hour, courage and brotherhood can overcome impossible odds. Private Martinez, now an old man, remembers, "I lost a lot of friends up there, but I also learned what it means to be a Marine. We never leave our own behind. Not ever." Chosin wasn't just a battle. It was a test of everything the Marine Corps stands for: honor, courage, commitment. It showed the world that even when surrounded, outnumbered, and freezing, the Marines would never surrender. The story of Chosin is still being written. Every year, veterans gather to remember, to honor the fallen, and to teach the next generation what it means to be a Marine. Their stories are passed down, not just as history, but as a living code. The lessons of Chosin are alive in every Marine who faces hardship, every unit that refuses to leave a man behind, every leader who puts his people first. The cold, the hunger, the fear, these are the crucibles that forge brotherhood. What do you think you would have done at Chosin? Do you have family who served there, or know another story of impossible odds? I want to hear your thoughts, your questions, your stories. Drop them in the comments below. Let's keep this conversation going and make sure the legacy of the frozen Chosin lives on. And if you want to keep exploring the most incredible stories of courage and survival in military history, don't stop here. There's more to discover. Just check out the next video on your screen.